going to talk about taking an essay. Something that you'll probably do pretty often in your college career. So, because professors like essay exams, they give them the opportunity to see that students don't not only know the information but can use it. So, there's some strategies that can really help you to do better on essay exams. Now, it's not going to take the place of studying. You do have to study. But if we have a plan, then it makes the whole process, a process that can be stressful, more manageable. So, strategy 1, study. Before you take the exam, study, know the material, because you're going to be asked to apply or interpret or evaluate. So you've got to know the information before you can do those things. So make flashcards, have a study group, recite, repeat information to yourself as you walk across campus, but make sure you know the information. Sleep well the night before. Staying up all night is not the best strategy. I've done it. I did it when I was in school, but you don't think as clearly when you're tired, so it's really not the best strategy for doing well. And set your alarm. Especially if it's a morning exam, set your alarm. Set 2 alarms if you need to. Don't sleep through your exam. Waking up late will make you frazzled. And when you're frazzled, you're going to struggle more with the exam. So try to keep the disruptions of that day to a minimum. And oversleeping is one of the biggest disruptions that you can have. So, strategy 2. When you sit down during the test, when you sit down, the professor passes out the test paper, or maybe it's on Canvas, read the instructions. Don't skip that front page if it's on Canvas, or what's at the top if it's on paper. Read the instructions. So here's an example. You may have, and I do this commonly on my essay exams, I may give 5 questions and then want you to answer 3. But you won't know that if you don't read the instructions. So when a professor gives you more questions than they want you to answer, it gives you the option to choose which questions you want to answer. You can answer the ones that are the most, that you feel the most comfortable with. But if you didn't read the instructions and there are 5 questions, you're supposed to answer 3, but you think you're supposed to answer all 5, that's going to mess with your time management. It's going to reduce the amount of time you have to spend on each question. So make sure there's going to be useful information. For instance, sometimes in the instructions, they might tell you how many points each question counts. One question may count 50 points, while another question counts 25 points. So the 50-point question is where you should put more time. And it probably is going to want a longer, more thorough answer. So lots of good information in the instructions, so definitely don't skip that part. So if we were to look at the instructions and pull out the important information, we see a clear, well-organized essay that answers 3, that's important, 3 questions. Strategy 3, read through the whole exam. Don't just go to question 1 and start answering. Read through the whole exam. You don't have to answer essay questions in order. So if you can see which questions do I feel most comfortable with, which question is going to take the most time, which question has the highest point value, you can get all of that information by reading through the exam. So not all questions are created equal, and different questions are going to demand different things. So maybe start with the question that you feel the most comfortable with, because that'll give you confidence, it'll get your thinking muscles flowing, warmed up, and that may help you on some of the other exams. If you start with the hardest question, then that may discourage you, or it may take too much of your time. And also, once you get started answering one question, it may spark ideas for later questions, and now you know what those questions are because you read through the exam, so you can jot down some notes. So here's an example. This first one is a question that was on one of my college history exams, and it's a pretty intense question. So if I were to look at these two questions, I see that question 1 is going to take me a lot of time. Question 2 is not. So if I can answer, I may want to start with question 1, which is going to have a higher point value because it demands more. And because I can answer, if I know the answer to number 2, list the first 4 states to secede from the Union. If I know that answer, I can make a list of 4 states quickly. So I can answer that real quickly and move on, or I could save it for the end and put most of my time into the first question. But I wouldn't know that unless I read through the whole exam. Then, what I've done here is I have marked keywords and keywords in the question. So the keywords are what does the professor want? He wants compare and contrast in question 1. He wants a list in question 2. So now I know what the expectations are for the essay. Find similarities and differences in number 1, make a list in number 2. And then Dutch and Spanish civilization. That's important. I don't want to compare England and Portugal. Dutch and Spanish. So now I know that's a keyword. Now I know what I'm supposed to do and what the content is. And then I got to compare it in those 5 areas. That question is going to be a lot. And then in the second one in yellow, I highlighted the keyword list and the keyword, the first 4 states. So not just 4 states, the first 4 states. Strategy 4. Consider what the question is asking for. So this kind of repeats that idea about keywords and keywords. So if a question says evaluate something, that's very different from summarize something. Summarize is just say it back to me in your own words. Evaluate means rendering a judgment and making a determination on the usefulness, value, whatever. So looking at those keywords will help you know what you're supposed to do. And then the keywords will make sure you include the right content. So for instance, in the previous question, if that had the 5 areas, if I didn't go back and review economic, religious, geographic, population, whatever, if I only did those 4 and didn't do the last one, then I wouldn't have, I've only done 80% of the question. So knowing what content that's required is really important. Strategy 5, plan your essay. I know it seems like you really think you just should sit down and start writing, and that's going to be the most efficient use of your time, but it's really not. A more efficient use of your time would be to start to jot down ideas as they pop into your head. And as you're moving through the test, when ideas pop into your head, write them down. You can just write them on the test page or on the inside cover of your blue book. I can't stress how important this is. Taking a test can be stressful, and when you have an idea pop into your head and then you think about something else because you're typing away or writing away, And then you're like, what was that idea? It was a good idea. Now I can't remember it, and I really need it. So if you'll jot things down, spend a little time, just a little bit of time even, thinking about, here are the things I want to say. Put them on a bullet points. That's going to take a lot of your anxiety away. Because you have some notes, not notes that are cheating, but notes that you've sort of points you've jotted down during the test to return to. And that takes the stress of trying to remember everything away. Strategy 6, go back as needed. When you're taking an essay exam and you're in a timed situation, you'll have your answer done, or you'll think it's done, and then you start on the next question, and an idea will pop into your head for the previous question. So go back as needed. As long as you're taking the test, you can continue to go back to previous questions. So jot down what idea popped into your head, and when you finish writing the answer that you're working on, you can go back. So what I used to do, and I think this is a good strategy, is if you're having to write in a blue book, which is you buy those, if you don't know what those are, you buy them in the bookstore, and it's just notebook paper that's stapled together, and it's usually got a blue cover, and that's why we call them blue books. About 10 pages of paper in there. I used to write on just one side of the page. So if an idea came to me, I wrote on the front side of the page, and the back side I would leave blank. And so if an idea came to me later, I have the whole back side, and I could draw an arrow, write that additional idea in and draw an arrow to where I wanted it to be in the essay. Because it's harder to add, move things on a handwritten page. And there are some professors who still use blue books on a handwritten page. If you're doing it on Canvas, you can go back into the essay draft and add in. But go back as needed. Jot things down as they come to you. Again, that's really important. Can't stress that enough. And then you can go back to a previous question. So I think some of those strategies are really going to help you. Test anxiety can be really detrimental to your performance on a test. So if you have a plan and you have a little more control over your part of taking the test, it'll really help you to manage some of that anxiety. And the less anxiety you have, the better you will perform. Or that's not necessarily true, because you could not be anxious at all and not study and then still not do well. But it'll give you, the less anxiety, the more confidence you'll have. So if you have a plan, you'll be more confident. Okay. That is it.